Welcome to Failure Friday, where I review some of the worst Mythic runs I've done during the week and see what went wrong and what could have been done better. Let's get right into this one. Right now we're doing a Rookery +6. So we have the first pull right here, which is just 5 mobs and a sort of mini boss. We'll throw out orbs, 3 of them, in a certain direction as you see here. At this point, the hunter and mage decided, who cares? I'm gonna ignore him. And the mage died. Just a few seconds into the Mythic run. You know, not a good sign. And now, coming up we have the orbs going out again, and we have the ret Paladin decide, hey, I like balls to the face too, let me take some of them. And he dies instantly because he didn't get out of the way, which is pretty pathetic. As I said, this is a +6, so they should have run this already, in addition to have run it because it's been out for months, not on Mythic status, but it still does the same thing. Just avoid any type of AoE directional that will be going at you. Simple. So now we're flying over to where the first boss is. You have to pull every mob in this area due to the boss having aggro on them once you engage the boss, which is different from previous builds. So here I'm pulling 2 groups. You should pull more when you're doing a key run. However, I wasn't too confident in this group at this point. And as you'll see later on, my instincts proved correct. And the only ones in a voice chat are me and the hunter Krovos. All the runs you'll see on this channel when it comes to Failure Friday will be pug runs, as I do not have a solid group of 5 people right now to do Mythics with. And where would the fun be if we did that, because each run would almost be flawless. So with these mobs, they push out a lot of AoE. The healer needs to just keep everyone up, which will be proven difficult for them, as you'll see coming up shortly. And this is another reason why I'm not pulling that many, because this healer is a cat weaver, but they're not a very good one. So again, you just go around in a circle, pulling all these groups, knocking them out. If I had a group that I was confident in, I'd be doing 2 to 3 pulls at a time, clearing the whole side instead of just doing 1 or 2 pulls slowly. Because while you can time a run doing it that way, you will not get a fast time. You won't get a ++ or a triple plus. For these ones, they all cast. You want to make sure you keep all of them interrupted as much as you can. So you want everyone interrupting, doing hard crowd control, interrupts, whatever you can. And it's going fairly well with people keeping them all interrupted. So the Xal'atath prefix for this week was Pulsar. And as you see in this run, and a bunch of runs I did during the week, people just completely decided to ignore the balls. I don't know why. Don't know if they were confused because it's a new mechanic. You'd have people running away from you with it, people trying to get their own balls. It was just a disaster. So right now we have 2 deaths. And soon, we're going to end up with 4. How? I don't know. But if you watch the healer's health, you'll see him drop shortly. So right here, boom. Healer did not move out of the directional wave that was shot out, and they died for it. So now, we have 2 groups, no healer. And we have the hunter almost going down because we have no healer, so I have to lay a hands him while I have to keep myself alive and keep the group on top of me. Here we go, mage dies because they didn't pop any of their defensives and there was no heals. Now I'm almost going down, so I'm spamming Word of Glory on myself, pop my bubble to keep myself up. And finally the healer gets back. Now the hunter goes down. Because no healer. During this run, you'll notice there's very simple concepts that people seem to ignore, which is stay out of the directional attacks. We had the orbs in the beginning, and the blue directional off of the birds at this part, and people just seem to not be able to get out of the way of it because they're not paying attention. See, it's all over the place. You can't miss it. Yet somehow, our healer did, which resulted in 2 additional deaths that were not needed. So here I'm debating, should I pull the other group? Because I have 0 confidence right now in our healer, being able to keep everyone alive, and our mage to not die to random stuff. And then I'll move on and grab the other group as well before all these mobs are dead. Just because, at this point, I would still like to beat the timer. Even though this group is pretty bad. So as always, make sure you keep these guys interrupted, crowd controlled as much as you can, especially when you have a healer you're not confident in, so a lot of damage is not going out. And then you won't have to worry about more deaths and a tight timer. Alright, for this boss, he'll do directional beams, which rotate left or right. You just gotta follow them. He'll throw down some blue circles on the ground during that, avoid them. And he'll also put blue circles around everyone here. Just don't be stacked up on each other to minimize the amount of damage that goes out. And here you go, you got directional damage on the ground. Stand outside of that. A pretty simple concept. Now we're in the phase where he does the beams. The beams will rotate. Just stay out of them. It's not hard. But apparently, again, it's hard for the mage and the healer because they're dead. Because they decide to stand in the beams, even though there's a long timer so you can avoid them. So at this point, I have to go and res the healer or else it's a wipe. So now we're going to be down 1 DPS during this fight, which will slow us down and slow the timer down. This has been a common problem I have noticed during Rookery runs that I have done. People just seem to be ignoring this blue AoE type stuff on the ground or directional attack and ignoring the beam direction and the beams in general, standing in them. And then they say, what happened? I didn't see that. When it's obvious. Especially if you're on a +6 right now. They should have done lower level ones and know exactly how the fight goes. So we have the beams coming out now. Doesn't matter what section you're in, just pick one, avoid the blue spots on the ground, and follow the way the beams are rotating, and you'll be fine. And then when this ends, the boss will pick a spot, jump in, and you just continue the fight, and it repeats, and you just do it until he's dead. Very simple. And coming up here, you'll see what I was talking about. How people just ignore the balls that are out and decide to run away from you with them. And here I go having to chase after the other Paladin just to get it. But I didn't. So here you can get a buff that'll give you nature damage every few seconds. So that's good for yourself and DPS, just to DPS mobs down quicker. Why not get it? It's free. It's right there. Grab it. But a lot of people do not do that and they don't even know about it. So for here you pull the static mobs and you pull the ones patrolling. You can ignore the ones in the corner as you do not need them for the enemy forces timer, or percent of the timer. And you'll easily get it by just killing mobs in your path on the way to the final boss. Less mobs to kill means you move quicker and you have a faster run time. So if you're looking at people's health bars during this small encounter, you'll see that they're getting pretty low, and that's taking the healer a little time to get them back up, which is something you do not want, because if you have a spike AoE damage or they just get hit by a random attack, they'll be dead. At this point I was contemplating whether we have enough time to actually time this run due to the incompetence from the healer and the mage. And I wasn't too sure, but I'd move on a little bit quicker as my confidence in the healer is pretty low right now. Normally, however, you'd want to pull this entire hallway, this group and the next group together, save time, and min-max the run so you can complete it quicker. So in this room and on the stairs you'll see several mobs that are sleeping. You can ignore them as you do not need them for the enemy forces bar. You will get that by just killing other mobs on the way. Don't need to pick up these crushers as they're a pain anyway for healers that are struggling as they jump around at random targets doing a void crush, which does a decent amount of damage. So again, make sure these oracles are interrupted, get them all stacked up in the group so everything can get AoE downed. People should stay relatively close as well, because the void crush where the mobs jump out. But as you see, they're all spread out, so the mobs are getting outside of the AoE circle that we have going on. So again, you just need to pull the group in the middle of the room, and the two at the door, and you're fine. Any mobs in here sleeping, you can ignore. So coming up onto the second boss, he'll do a couple moves. One is he'll put a dot out on a random person. Once it's done ticking, it'll switch over to another person. It'll do this 4 times. He'll also jump to a random target, which will leave a big circle on the ground which you don't want to stand in. And when he does that, beams will shoot out in all directions that you want to avoid. So the ideal thing here is, for your ranged people, you have them spread out in the back, so if they do jump to them, the circle's far away from the group where it won't be. So as you can tell, there's the circle on the ground that you don't want to stand in. And that's pretty much the whole fight. And coming up, you'll see that the mage has a dot on him, and the healer's not healing him, and he dies because the dot killed him. Again, this healer is not very good at keeping people alive or paying attention to what is going on. The boss jumps, the waves go out, you ignore him. And then the dot goes on a random target and switches if you're close by. There's the fight. Very simple if you're paying attention and you know what to do. So here we have Pulsar out again. Nobody's getting him, so the hunter on Discord's talking to me about it. He's distracted, and he gets hit by the wave. Don't know why the mage was hit, and I don't know why the Ret Paladin was hit. So again, nobody's getting these balls swirling around, so now the boss gets a stack of 3 and gets buffed. And we have 2 dead DPS. As I said, this whole instance is a show. And I do not know why people don't have the ability to pay attention and know these boss fights. And there are 0 reses up right now, so we're either going to do this fight with 1 DPS, 1 healer, and myself, or we're just going to wipe and get all of them back. At this point, I really didn't care because I was fed up with this run, and I knew we weren't going to time it, even if we did wipe. The boss is about to jump and do another wave crash, and the healer dies because they have a dot on them that's been going out the whole instance, and they have refused to heal themselves just to run away. At this point, there's no point in staying alive, so I kill myself. That way we can have the whole group, and hopefully DPS them down in a timely manner. So we all make it back finally. Let's hope the DPS can keep themselves out of the avoidable damage, and the healer can actually keep people alive. A close jump right there, which is unfortunate, but happens when you have melee in the group. You just have to spread out and move back from that so you can avoid the beams that go out, which everyone did there. And then here we have the dot going out. Again, the healer not keeping him up, so I had to lay a hands the Paladin so he did not die. As you saw right there, I went to click on the mage because I wasn't too confident in the healer keeping them up, but they did, which is props to the healer. They're actually learning and keeping people alive through the dot. Well, here goes the Paladin again. Paladin's dead because he had the dot ticking on him, and he moved right into the jump because he was panicking. So as quickly as I praise the healer, take that praise back, because that dot was ticking on him for a good while, just chunking his health away, and he was receiving no heals. And while I did move into a bad position here, as I noticed, I mounted up and ran to the other side of the room where there's more room for everyone, and there's not a lot of the blue dots on the ground. And so far, other than a few hiccups in the beginning of this fight, it's going relatively smooth. Although again, nobody's getting the pulsars going around, so the boss is about to get a stack of 4. Again, not good. And the healer almost died right there. Now the healer gets a dot on him, does not heal themselves, and the healer goes down. Good news, however, is the boss is at 7%, and I have 2 DPS up, so we can kill him. But again, the healer not doing their basic job of healing, causing themselves and another DPS during this fight to die, with others getting very low. Now we're moving on to the spot where you drop down to the 3rd boss, and we'll see how it goes from there. But at this point I screwed up because I didn't res the healer or the other paladin, and I'm going in without the healer or the paladin, which will result in both my DPS that are with me getting very low on health and almost dying. At this point I was pretty aggravated, which is what led me to doing this pull without our healer or extra DPS. So next time, I need to make sure that the others are alive and with us before I pull this room. But no one died, so there's a plus for this disaster of a run. Coming up, you'll see that I get very low on health, as well as do several others. Again, because the healer is not too good at what they're doing. Right here, getting low on health. There's orbs going out, you get in between them, avoid them. Other people didn't. You have Void Crushers going out, jumping on everyone. The mage is getting low. I'm getting low. Not sure what the healer's doing again. We jump down, and now we're going to head to the 3rd boss. So this is pretty straightforward to get to him. You can pull these 2 groups right here. They're non-elites. They leave circles on the ground you don't want to stand in. And what I'll usually do is I'll pull the group up on the platform to the right, as the way I'm facing, as I've had numerous groups pull them, and it's just a disaster when you have extra mobs running in that you don't expect. So let's pull them, grab the Void Crushers, and go from there. Of course, when you're doing this in a run that you will time, and you have a semi-decent healer, you'll pull all those groups I just pulled, in addition to the group to my left right now, that's just standing there, this one. You want to get all of them together and AoE them down. This will save you time, and it's more efficient. So with this mob, they'll throw out purple circles on the ground that you need to avoid. Simple stuff, although at this point I did not even know if this group could even do that. However, it seems that they could. We have a 2-pull here, a bunch of non-elite afflicted civilians, and then 2 crushers and an ascendant that shoots the orbs out. Again, simple basic pull, and you should be able to pull these 2 groups and the other one directly in front of where the boss spawns. But as we've been saying through this entire run, I do not think this group could even handle that. So we're going to take out these 3 mobs and then move on to the boss. There's the orbs. Stand in the middle of them. You won't get hit. Looks like everyone figured that out this time around. Again, this group should have been pulled with the other one. If not, you should pull this group and the group directly to the left of it. And as I've been pointing out this entire time, you have Pulsar going out, and you have no one other than the Hunter trying to dispel the orbs circling around everyone. I don't get why this is going on, but again, it's par for the course with this group. As you can see, you have the healer running right next to me, not even trying to get the orb around me. So again, more buffs on the mobs that are not needed. So here, we have the orbs going out again, and the healer is unable to avoid them for some reason, taking 2 to the face and almost dying. And when the boss spawns, he does a knockback, and I've seen plenty of times where people get knocked off into the water. However, somehow this group ironically did not get knocked back. Now on this fight, I do tank the boss in the wrong spot, just facing straight on instead of on the corners to the left or the right. The main thing on this fight is to make sure everyone that gets the circle around them stands on a crystal, so an ad does not spawn from it, which will cause heavy AoE damage and potentially wipe the raid. So right there, I had to heal the healer because the healer was not healing themselves. And as usual, nobody's getting the pulsar orbs, so the boss is about to get a nice massive buff. The hunter came in to get them, but no one else was. And that was me checking to make sure everyone was getting the crystals, because I was being told that people were almost not getting them. And the Ret died because he had no heals. Now we have the orbs going out again, with nobody getting them other than the mage. And the hunter did try, but he was too far away to get into the group. And we got the Paladin rezzed, and then he almost dies again. Now the mage is dead because he stood directly behind me when the directional damage went out. But we have 2 DPS up, so the boss should be dead. And we should be able to actually complete this with 17 deaths.